The lock gives way at 9:47 in the morning, and Anne, the Princess Royal, does not breathe. She is alone in a back room at Gatcombe Park, the kind of room nobody photographs. A box sits on the table in front of her, small, worn at the corners. The brass clasp has gone green with age. Her hands, steady through 6 decades of public duty, are not steady now. Her fingers hover over the lid like it might burn her. She lifts it. She looks inside. And the most disciplined woman in the British royal family begins to cry. Not the polite kind, not the kind cameras catch at a memorial. These are the tears a person fights and loses. Her shoulders move, her jaw tightens. A single drop lands on the velvet inside the box and darkens it. Hi viewers, before we go any further, tell me in the comments, have you ever opened something old that brought back a person you lost? Drop one word that describes how it felt. I read every single comment, and this story is going to hit different depending on your answer. Now stay with me, because what made Anne cry was not a diamond. For years, royal watchers said the same thing, over and over, and most people waved it away. They said Diana, Princess of Wales, was not finished with the monarchy. They said her memory would keep coming back, crisis after crisis, decade after decade, until someone finally faced it. People called that nostalgia. People called it obsession. People said the press just wanted to sell the same sad story forever. But according to reports circulating in royal commentary, this small box, allegedly tied to Diana herself, makes that old warning feel alive again. There is no public confirmation of everything it held. The palace does not comment on private family objects. Royal biographers can only speculate, yet the idea alone is enough to stop you cold. Think about who we are talking about. Anne is the Princess Royal. She is the daughter of the late Queen Elizabeth II. She is the sister of King Charles III. She is known across the world for one thing above all else: control. She works more public engagements than almost anyone in the family. She does not flinch. She does not weep on cue. When other people fall apart, Anne is the one standing straight. So picture it. That woman, that spine of steel, sitting alone, crying over a box.
There were not many people who understood just how broad his interests were and how supportive he was of an astonishingly...
If Anne broke, the object had to carry more than sentiment. It had to carry weight, the kind of weight that does not come from gold or pearls, but from truth. And here is the strange part. The box is not a crown. It is not a throne. It is not a sealed royal document locked in some palace vault. It is a small, ordinary thing, the sort of object a person keeps on a dresser. Yet inside the monarchy, the smallest objects often carry the loudest meaning. A ring can end a marriage. A photograph can shift public opinion overnight. A single missing piece can rewrite who the public trusts. The narrator must tell you something now, plainly. What sat inside that box may not have been the jewels at all. The most dangerous thing in there may have been what the jewels pointed to. An arrangement, a space, a silence shaped exactly like a question nobody wanted asked. Because royal watchers have speculated that grief, when it is real, does not stay in the past. It waits. It sits in velvet for years. And then one ordinary morning, a clasp turns green, a lid lifts, and the past walks straight back treasure. A sapphire, a row of pearls, the cold shine of stones that have outlived the woman who wore them. Anne stares at them, and the narrator wants you to understand something that most people miss. To Anne, these are not accessories. These are evidence. Diana, Princess of Wales, became one of the most photographed women on the planet. Cameras followed her to hospitals, to galas, to landmine fields, to the back of speeding cars. And on her body, again and again, were these jewels. Over time, they stopped being fashion. They became a language. The public learned to read her through them. When Diana looked trapped, the jewels looked heavy on her, like chains dressed up as gifts. When she looked free, the same jewels looked like wings. The sapphire engagement ring, the pearls at her throat, the tiaras that crowned a smile that did not always reach her eyes. People watched and people felt, and they made up their own minds about a marriage they were never inside. That ring matters now more than ever.
You've achieved. In the past 12 years, I can honestly say that one of my greatest pleasures has been my association with people like yourself. During those years, I've met many thousands of wonderful...
Because Catherine, Princess of Wales, wears Diana's sapphire engagement ring today, Prince William, the Prince of Wales, placed it on her hand. He carries Diana's bloodline. He carries her memory. He carries the public's permission to be the future, partly because he is her son. And outside the working royal structure stand Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, and Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. They left the front line of royal life, but Diana's emotional legacy follows them anyway, in every headline that asks whether the family learned anything at all. Then there is Queen Camilla, not a cartoon villain, not a monster from a fairy tale, simply the woman who can never fully step out of one shadow. Her title is Queen. That is official. That is settled. Yet in any story that involves Diana's jewels, public sympathy has a way of drifting backward toward the woman who is no longer here to defend herself. That is the trap, and the narrator wants you to see it clearly. Diana's jewels did not simply survive her. They became a language the palace could never fully control. The family could control statements. It could control schedules. It could not control what people felt when they saw a sapphire on a new hand. So when Anne allegedly looked into that box, she was not counting carats. She was looking at an inheritance war written in diamonds, pearls, and silence. And the war was not over. It had barely begun. Anne does not gasp. She does not call for anyone. She sits very still and she begins to see the shape of it. This is what makes her reaction land so hard. Anne is not the dramatic one. She never has been. Give the same box to almost anyone else in the family and you get noise. Give it to Anne and you get a quiet, terrible clarity. That is the difference between a woman who performs feeling and a woman who finally cannot hide it. Think about what this one person has lived through. She watched the long reign of her mother, Queen Elizabeth II. She watched the marriage of her brother, then King Charles III as Prince of Wales, to Diana, Princess of Wales. She watched that marriage break in front of the whole world. She watched the slow public rise of the woman now called Queen Camilla. She lived through the shock of Diana's death in 1997. She watched Prince Harry and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, step away. She stood beside her brother as he became king. That is not nostalgia. That is a witness statement, stretched across 50 years.
That idea. A historical perspective, which is slightly different, maybe more realistic. It just goes...
The narrator wants you to understand why Anne sees patterns before other people do. She has spent her entire life inside the machine. She knows duty. She also knows the price of duty when it is paid by women who are handed enormous public love and almost no public protection. In the box, Anne does not just see Diana's taste in jewellery. She sees the old palace pattern, the one that repeats like a wheel turning in the dark. A young woman enters the institution. The public falls in love with her. The institution takes control of her image. The pressure builds. The damage is done. And then, only after she is gone, the same institution carefully preserves her memory, because by then, the memory is useful. That is the part that breaks her, not the loss, the reuse of the loss. Anne recognized the pattern instantly because she had spent her whole life inside the system that built it. She had watched it before. She would likely watch it again. And as her hand rested on the edge of that box, one thought cut through everything else. This box was not accusing one person. It was not pointing at Camilla or Charles or any single face. It was accusing an entire method of survival. And methods, unlike people, do not apologize. They simply wait for the next young woman to walk through the door. The phone in Anne's pocket buzzes once, and the name on the screen changes everything. Charles. She does not answer right away. She looks from the screen to the box and back again, and the narrator wants you to feel the weight of that pause, because the man calling her is not just her brother now. He is King Charles III. And this box, this small green-clasped box, is a problem he cannot solve with a press release. Charles did not only inherit a throne, he inherited a story he can never fully walk away from. His first marriage is not private history. It is public history, replayed in documentaries, books, and headlines every single year. Every symbolic return of Diana's image lands on his reign like a stone dropped in still water, and the ripples reach everyone. Queen Camilla, Prince William, Catherine, Prince Harry, all of them. His reign already carries enough. The long shadow of Queen Elizabeth II, the pressure of a public that wants the monarchy to feel modern and human, family fractures that play out in interviews and memoirs, health concerns that the press discusses openly, and the quiet, constant work of preparing Prince William for the throne that will one day be his. Now add a jewellery box that drags Diana back into the centre of the room. The narrator wants you to be fair here, because the truth is more interesting than a villain. Charles is a king trying to hold things steady in a reign full of pressure. He is not hiding Diana out of cruelty. He is managing a wound that never fully closed, on behalf of an institution that does not allow open wounds. And Camilla's position turns delicate the moment that box opens. She is queen. That is real. That is final. But in any story that puts Diana's jewels at the centre, public sympathy has a habit of sliding back toward the first wife. It does not take a fresh scandal to do it. The old one is enough. The old wound reopened does the work all by itself. That is the danger the narrator wants you to sit with. The palace can manage what people read. It can shape statements, schedules, and photographs. What it cannot always manage is what people feel when a symbol returns without warning. And this box is pure symbol. It places Charles in the one position no monarch ever wants. Not scandal, not crisis. Something quieter and harder. He is reigning over a past the public refuses to bury, while holding a phone, calling a sister who has just seen something he was never supposed to lose control of. The question is, does Anne pick up? Anne does not call Charles back. She calls William instead. And that single choice, brother skipped, son chosen, tells you exactly where the power in this family is quietly moving. The narrator wants you to feel the shift in the room, because the alleged jewellery box is no longer only about a woman who died in 1997. It is about a man who has to rule in a future that has not arrived yet. Prince William, the Prince of Wales, is the heir. He is Diana's elder son. He is the boy who walked behind her coffin while the entire world watched and said nothing useful. He is also a father now. Prince George, Princess Charlotte, Prince Louis. That makes Diana's legacy both a feeling and a fact of state. The monarchy's future runs directly through the son who lived through the trauma of losing her. You cannot separate the crown he will wear from the mother he buried. Here is the power shift, laid out plainly. King Charles III is the monarch. He holds the title today. But more and more the public looks past him, toward William, as the man who will define what comes next. People want to know what kind of king William will be, and this box has just become a test of that answer. The narrator wants you to sit with the hard version of the question. Can William honour his mother without turning her memory into a product? Can he modernise the monarchy, make it leaner and sharper the way he reportedly wants, without using her pain as a brand? Every photograph, every tribute, every careful mention of Diana is watched. Tribute can look like strategy. Silence can look like shame. There is no clean move. And Catherine, Princess of Wales, stands right in the middle of it. She wears Diana's ring. She carries the title Diana once carried. To the public, she is continuity, the calm bridge from the old story to the new one. But that role is a blade with two edges. Every time she echoes Diana, the world compares them. A jewel becomes a headline, a gesture becomes a statement, a silence becomes a clue. She did not ask for that comparison. The institution handed it to her the day she said yes. The narrator wants you to understand what may have truly broken Anne. It was not only the jewels, it was the realization that William may be the one person alive who can protect Diana's memory from two directions at once, from the institution that wants to manage it, and from the public that wants to consume it. Anne's tears, then, were not just grief for the past, they were fear for the future. Because she may have understood, sitting in that quiet room, that William's reign was already being judged through his mother's unfinished story, before it had even begun. And the box still held one thing Anne had not looked at yet. Anne's fingers move to the corner of the box, and she stops breathing again. It is not a jewel that holds her. It is a gap, an empty velvet slot, cut to fit something that is no longer there. The shape of it is clear. Whatever sat in that space was important enough to have its own home, and now the home is bare. She presses her thumb into the soft dent, the way a person touches a scar. Royal watchers have long speculated that in any discovery like this, the most emotional part would never be the obvious shine. It would be the arrangement, the order of things, a velvet slot worn smooth, a faded mark where a piece once rested, a small note of ownership written in a hand the world would recognize. The line between what belonged privately to Diana, Princess of Wales, and what the monarchy considered its own. The narrator wants you to sit with the power of that empty space, because it is stronger than any diamond could ever be. A jewel only tells you what is there, an absence tells you what was lost, and the human mind cannot leave an empty space alone. It fills it, it imagines, it asks what was taken, who took it, and why the gap was left behind for someone like Anne to find years later. This is the safer truth and the sharper one. There is no public confirmation of what filled that slot. No biographer can prove it. The palace does not catalogue private grief. So the story does not invent a secret jewel and call it fact. It does something better. It lets you feel the missing piece without naming it. And that absence does not stay quiet. It spreads. It touches Queen Camilla, who lives beside one comparison she can never win. It touches Catherine, Princess of Wales, who wears Diana's ring and walks in her outline. It touches Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, who married into the same machine from the outside. And it touches a child, Princess Charlotte, who carries part of this story in her own name without choosing it. Because Diana's jewels were never only about the past. They ask a live question. Which woman gets to carry which part of the story forward? The empty space was not empty. It was filled with every question the palace had learned to avoid. And the longer Anne stared at it, the more certain she became. That missing piece pointed forward, not back. It pointed at a future royal woman who may one day inherit Diana's name long before she understands the full weight tied to it. Anne already knew which child that was. A small framed photograph slides loose from the lid of the box, and Anne catches it before it falls. A little girl, dark eyes, a name written on the back in fading ink, Charlotte Elizabeth Diana. Anne's hand tightens around the frame, and the narrator wants you to understand why this is the moment everything turns. The world keeps its eyes on the big players. King Charles III, Prince William, Catherine, Queen Camilla, Prince Harry and Meghan, Duchess of Sussex. Every headline circles those names like planets around a fire. But the deeper future of this family may not rest with any of them. It may rest with a child still in school. Princess Charlotte of Wales. She carries Diana inside her own name. Charlotte Elizabeth Diana. 3 women. 3 crowns of expectation, stitched into a single girl, and she is growing up in a monarchy unlike any Diana ever faced. One wired into social media, live stream scrutiny, and global commentary that never sleeps. The narrator wants you to feel what that means. The jewelry box stops being about old grief. It becomes a preview, a glimpse of what Charlotte may one day inherit. Not just jewels, not just titles, unfinished stories, handed down like heirlooms with sharp edges. And Anne understands this better than almost anyone alive, because she has lived a version of it. She was the daughter of Queen Elizabeth II. She was the sister of a future king. She was one of the hardest working royals in the entire family for decades. And still, succession rules and old institutional habits kept shaping where she was allowed to stand, close to the centre, rarely at it. So she looks at Charlotte's photograph and sees a pattern about to repeat. A royal girl, full of promise, positioned near power but quietly told to wait, to soften, to serve. The conflict changes shape right here, and the narrator wants you to catch it. The question is no longer only what happened to Diana years ago. The question becomes sharper and colder. Will the next royal girl inherit silence? Will she inherit performance? Or will someone finally give her the truth? Anne saw something in Charlotte's future that the rest of the family was too busy to notice, because they were all staring at succession charts instead of the child standing inside them. And what she saw made her grip the frame even tighter, because the most painful inheritance in the royal family may not be a jewel at all. It may be a role no child ever asked to carry. Two names sit on a slip of paper inside the box, written side by side, and Anne reads them twice. Camilla, Catherine. The narrator wants you to understand what those two names beside each other really mean, because this is where the quiet war becomes visible. There is no proof of a real feud. Let that be clear. Royal commentary loves a rivalry, and the press has built one for years, but the palace officially denies any open conflict between these women. What the narrator offers you instead is something more honest, public perception, and the trap it builds around them both. Queen Camilla stands for endurance, for legitimacy, for the official present, hard-won across decades of public doubt. Catherine, Princess of Wales, stands for stability, youth, and the future queen consort role waiting at the end of William's path. And between them, like a third presence that never leaves the room, stands Diana, the emotional past that still competes with both of them at once. This is the trap, and the narrator wants you to see every wall of it. If Camilla keeps her distance from Diana's legacy, the public reads it as cold avoidance. If Catherine honours Diana too openly, the public reads it as comparison, as a younger woman measured against a ghost. If William protects his mother's memory too fiercely, critics call it strategy and branding. If he stays quiet, critics call it abandonment. There is no winning move on this board, only different ways to lose in public. The narrator wants you to feel the real tragedy here, and it is not about one woman beating another. It is about a system that pushes women into comparison and then steps back to watch. The institution feeds on female symbolism, the grace, the fashion, the motherhood, the tributes. But it almost never protects those same women from the emotional bill that comes due. That is the point Anne understood as she held that slip of paper. The villain in this story is not Camilla. It is not Catherine. The villain is the method itself, the old machine that benefits from these women and shields itself behind them. The box did not pick a side between Camilla and Catherine. It did something worse. It exposed the trap both women were already standing inside, without ever being asked if they wanted to be there. And the narrator wants to leave you with the cruelest part. Diana's shadow does not destroy royal women by attacking them. It destroys peace by making the whole world compare them, year after year, until comparison becomes the only language anyone speaks. Anne set the paper down, and then she noticed the date written at the bottom, a date that should not have existed yet. Anne reads the date a third time, and the air in the room seems to drop 10 degrees. It is not from the past, it points to something still ahead. And the narrator wants you to understand why a single date could turn a box of old jewellery into a threat against the future of the crown itself. Because this stopped being about Diana, Princess of Wales, the moment her memory started shaping how the public sees William's coming reign. King Charles III can manage the present. He has spent his life learning how. But Prince William must inherit the consequences, and consequences do not negotiate. The narrator wants you to look at what the public now demands from the monarchy. People want it to feel human, accountable, modern, emotionally honest. And Diana's story remains the clearest example in living memory of what happens when the institution looks cold at exactly the wrong moment. That lesson did not fade. It hardened into a test the family must keep passing, forever. Now picture the wider pressure pressing in around that box. Prince Harry's public rupture with the family, played out in interviews and a memoir read around the world. Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, and a public image that shifts depending on who is telling the story. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, whose reputation has done real damage to the family's standing, though the narrator keeps that reference general and points you only to what is already public record. Queen Camilla's long road to legitimacy, Catherine's symbolic burden, and Anne, the steady witness standing in the middle of all of it. The narrator wants you to feel how these threads pull at one thread of credibility. From a public relations standpoint, every one of these stories chips at the same foundation, trust. And trust, once cracked, is the one thing no press office can fully repair. Here is the turn the narrator wants you to hold on to. The box did not threaten the crown because of what it contained. It threatened the crown because of what it reminded people to feel. Feeling is harder to manage than fact. You can deny a claim. You cannot deny a wound. And that is the danger sitting in Anne's hands. The monarchy's greatest threat may not be a fresh scandal at all. It may be emotional debt, built up over decades, ignored, deferred, postponing. Anne closes the box. Then she opens it one more time, slowly, like she's saying goodbye and refusing to, all at once. This is where it ends, and the narrator wants you to feel that it does not end clean. Anne's tears are the human center of everything. She's not crying over diamonds. She's crying over a single brutal understanding that Diana's memory has become two things at the same time: sacred and useful, loved and managed, protected and used. That is the weight no one warned her about. The narrator returns you to the warning that opened this story. This was never a new scandal. It was an old one, finally showing its face. Diana's jewelry box became the symbol of everything the monarchy tried to file neatly into separate drawers: private, public, royal, personal, inherited, borrowed, returned, displayed, hidden. But grief does not obey palace categories. It never has. It leaks past every label the institution presses onto it. And here is the lesson Anne carried out of that room, the one the narrator wants you to keep. A family can inherit jewels. A monarchy can inherit titles. A nation can inherit memory. But nobody, not a king, not an heir, not a child with Diana stitched into her name, can inherit healing unless someone is finally brave enough to tell the truth about the wound. The ending is bittersweet, not explosive, and that is the point. Anne does not storm out. She does not expose a villain to the cameras. She does not destroy a single person. She simply understands what everyone around her had spent years avoiding. Diana's legacy will keep returning, crisis after crisis, reign after reign, until the monarchy stops treating it as image management and starts treating it as human history. She places the box back where she found it. She wipes her face. She straightens her shoulders because she is still the Princess Royal, and duty does not pause for grief. But she carries the warning with her now, because in the royal family the most powerful object is rarely the crown. Sometimes it is a small box, quietly opened years later, forcing everyone still alive to face the one warning they heard too late. And somewhere, a child named Charlotte Elizabeth Diana is growing up, not yet knowing that the story is already waiting for her.